Awesome. So welcome everybody to Teaching Through Gardening in the Time of COVID. This is our Cooperative Extension Learn at Home webinar series brought to you by the College of the Environment and Life Sciences. My name is Vanessa Venturini, and I am so pleased to host you all this evening. So you can go right ahead, Melissa.
I thought you were doing the...
Yeah, if you just advance the slide for me. I'll go on to the next one. So again, Cooperative Extension has all these different focus areas, and we're all about bringing research-based science to communities in need. And you can go right ahead. We'll just go quickly through these opening slides. We're so glad to be able to bring you this information during a pandemic. So learning about teaching during a pandemic from home, and we're happy to reach a wide audience with our information. Okay, keep going, please. A little bit of housekeeping. Yes, this class is being recorded, and you'll be able to find it on the URI Cooperative Extension YouTube channel, and it will also have closed captioning added to it at that time. So thank you all. We also ask that you please complete the brief survey that's going to be sent to you in an email after the program, so that we can know how our programs are impacting our communities and who it is that we're serving, so we can serve you better in the future. So we can go right ahead, and I am so happy to introduce the wonderful, the incredible Melissa Pace, who I've known for many years. She is not only a URI Extension Master Gardener, but she is a former public school teacher who taught from a school garden. She is a educator for Massachusetts Horticulture Society, and she has been a really integral part of our leadership team with our school garden mentors and the school garden initiative that we have through Cooperative Extension, where we are supporting these wonderful outdoor learning environments. And we know we just want to thank everyone on this call for helping make this really difficult time into a positive experience for the students and the youth in our communities. So thank you all for the incredible work that you're doing, and I am happy to turn this over to Melissa Pace.
So good evening. So COVID has really turned all of our lives upside down, no? And it's left us all to re-examine everything that we do and how we do it. So I'm glad that you hung in there and that we're all here this evening to parse through the ifs, the whys, the hows of teaching in the age of COVID in a school garden. So why would you still want to teach in the school garden? According to the CDC, meetings outdoors are much safer than meetings that are indoors. And utilizing outdoor teaching space will alleviate some of the stress on the classrooms. It'll also assist individuals who are teaching or assisting teaching their children from home in alleviating the burden of too many people per room at home. Visible school gardens can become a point of inspiration for students and for the community at large. I've heard this redundantly when I've been visiting some of the school gardens throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Furthermore, the school garden can really create moments of connection with your community. I think that's true now more than ever. School gardens can become a center of family education. How many homes now are beginning to garden and grow some of their own vegetables and fruits? Zoom home gardening classes and clubs, families can access season-long check-ins. Many of the school gardens are trying to figure out how they might possibly have a family garden club versus just an individual student garden club. You might want to consider distributing information such as SNAP applications and food bank locations with your families. Think about how differently students will look upon having SNAP applications, for example, if they're given out in a positive, upbeat way at the school garden. It becomes less of a stigma. All the benefits of teaching in a school garden still apply even in the time of COVID. So if I've convinced you that you still want to use your school garden, how are you going to move forward? The first thing and the foremost thing that you need to do is to obtain the approval of the school administration. Now, a lot of people, because they already had the approval with their administrators, didn't consider that they needed to go back to the administration again because of COVID. Please make that your first stop. I have not heard any of the schools that I work with in either Rhode Island or in Massachusetts where the administration were not supportive, but they do want to be involved. Also seek the support again of your school community. Garden community, don't assume that they're still going to be there. Your teachers that were active, your parents, and obviously the Master Gardener mentors. Touch base with them, make sure that they're still as excited as they were. Any individuals that are necessary to run that school garden operation, they have to be in place. So if someone, such as a parent that possibly assisted you in maintaining the garden or came in and assisted in while you taught, make sure that they're either ready to come back or try to refill that position, at least on a temporary basis. Once you've done that, you want to go and obtain the COVID-era classroom protocols for the indoor classrooms from your school system. Then take a deep breath, a very deep breath, and reevaluate your school garden. Consider what's really reasonable and doable in this climate. Then analyze 3 elements separately of your school garden program, and you're going to want to do these in order. The first thing you want to reevaluate is your garden crops. What are you growing? How are you growing them? The second thing you're going to want to reevaluate is the physical garden layout. Where are your seats? Where does the teacher stand? Is there space surrounding the teacher? And we'll talk more about that in a moment. Then you want to incorporate all of the protocol for the COVID era. And you want to make sure that you address all the individuals that are impacted by the school garden. You want to make sure that you have protocols for the students, for the teachers, the support personnel, and the volunteers. So, garden crops. 78% of the school gardens currently in the US grow vegetables of some sort and fruits. That's absolutely wonderful, and I'm not advocating that's not a good thing, but they can be very difficult to manage, very difficult to harvest, and very difficult to distribute in the current climate. So consider the possibility of changing your plantings in the school garden. Possibly consider switching over to an herb garden. Now the picture in the back is an herb garden. It has sage, chives, basil. If you're not sure you want to continue on with the herb garden after the COVID era, put all of your perennial, such as the sage, in one box, put annual herbs in another box. That way, when the annuals have passed by, you'll be able to go back to your vegetables. Consider the possibility of native plants and doing a pollinator garden, particularly if your students have done a lot of work with insects, with animals. Consider switching it over to native plants and pollinators. It's easier to maintain. You're not going to have the issue of handling and the care of harvesting and distributing. Now, there was a master gardener that a few years back was very into bulbs. So if your beds are empty, you're planting bulbs now. When you're unable to go out into the garden in the winter, the bulbs are doing their thing, and in the spring, they'll come up, they'll bloom, you can cut them, you can use them for fundraisers, you can teach kids about bulbs, and it will be, again, a situation where you do not have to harvest or distribute. Cut Flower gardens using annuals, also same thing. Second thing you're going to consider is the physical garden layout. So the picture here is Willard Garden in North Attleboro, and obviously wouldn't be appropriate seating now. It is not 6 foot apart, and the children would be much too close together. I recommend that you would, in a situation like this, move the seats and possibly add a third row. If you can't move seats, if they're permanently placed, consider marking them. Do not leave students to have to debate where they sit and whether it's enough distance apart. Mark it so that it's clear and self-evident. Have teachers have a demonstration table. This isn't always the case because nothing is more fun than having kids surrounding you, looking enthusiastically at whatever you're demonstrating, but that might not be so good for health issues right now. So if you have a demonstration table, it will automatically keep the kids a distance from the teacher or whoever's demonstrating. Consider installing new features such as shelter. Hopefully, you're going to be out there a lot more than you have been in the past, and a shelter keeps you from sun issues and also allows students to be able to see better when they're writing, drawing, and participating in the class. You might consider automatic irrigation. That will eliminate some of the need to have parents in the garden or teachers tending to the watering. Consider adding a video system for e-classes. This also will allow you to extend classes and clubs out into the community. Mark 6 foot distances in the garden for student reference. Even adults actually are very unable to determine distances. So if you mark, if a fence is 6 foot, if there's a 6 foot distance between your raised beds, it gives them a visual reference to make sure that they're staying, in fact, 6 foot apart. Don't leave it to them to guess, particularly if they're elementary school students. But even adults, try it out. Have 2 adults stand apart, and you'd be amazed that it's not 6 foot. It'll be usually much less. So get the new in-school protocol. From that protocol, develop a plan for your school garden. So you want to develop some type of a system to clean the common tools. It's not really necessary in regular times, but in COVID, you don't want people handling common tools. One system that I saw that worked really well was a 3-bucket system. So all the students put the dirty tools into an empty bucket. The teacher sprayed off all those tools and got any loose debris and dirt off of the tools. Then you drain most of the water off, you dump it into a second bucket that has isopropyl alcohol dip, which is about a 20% to 80% water isopropyl alcohol. So 20% isopropyl, 80% water. Then you dump that out and you rinse with water. Put them on a drying rack and they're good to go for the next group. Have all safety equipment available that the indoor classes have for the outdoor school space. Make sure that you have PPE that's necessary. Make sure that you have adult and student sizes. And consider the appropriate size for the kids, particularly gloves. Deli gloves work particularly well. They're the big, hard plastic gloves that you can get. They're very inexpensive. And if they slip around on the kids' hands, if you just have them dampen their hands a little bit, the gloves stay on. Beware of hazards such as latex gloves. And even the non-latex tight gloves are difficult for the students to get on and off. Bleach is a very good antibacterial, but it can leave marks on clothes and it can be, many people are allergic to it. So I don't suggest that you use any type of bleach where students can access it. Consider computerized record keeping. Now, once you've decided what and how you're going to do it, return to your steering committees and your grantors. Here's why. First of all, to fund any hard goods. The American Association of Dermatology has up to $8,000 currently available for garden area shade structures. What a great time to put in a shade structure right now so that you can utilize that school garden more than you do currently. If you're considering new plantings particularly, Herb Society of America has up to $5,000 available in grants. The development, the publication, and execution of the protocol may be underwritten by local health providers. You also might want to seek out the assistance of community-based teachers, designers, videographers. There's all sorts of people that are currently working from home or not working at all and looking for something productive to do. What a wonderful thing to get them involved. Consider cable channels are a good place to look, and donations right now. So you want to develop some comprehensive school garden procedures. You want to base them off of the general school COVID protocols. You want to make sure that you know how many people can be in your school garden at one time. Obviously, masks are going to be required, 6-foot social distancing. Make sure that you remind the students, particularly elementary school students, frequently about sneezing and coughing into their elbows and washing their hands. Volunteer requirements. Make sure that they understand clearly what your expectations are. If there's going to be temperature checks, who's going to do them? If the school is going to require a negative corona test beforehand, who's going to manage those? And who's going to be responsible to enforce the protocol in the garden, for example, when the volunteers are there alone? Include specific procedures for the teachers. Now, ingress and egress is always difficult. Getting the students in and out of the school, very difficult. So you need to develop a plan, and if all teachers are using the same plan, it works well. One of the schools I visited in Sudbury, Mass. Had a good program where the first student on the closest seat to the teacher would go up to the teacher. They would take 6 steps, which would be roughly 6 feet, and then the next child would go up to the teacher and they would follow the next student. The students together would count 6, and the next student, and so forth until they were all in and out. Consider cooperative learning techniques. For example, jigsaw is where a group of kids work together and each one does a very particular job. For example, one may be the scribe, one may be the planter, one may be the measurer. They work together in a group. What a wonderful time. If some students are home, some students are in the garden, what a wonderful time to use cooperative learning techniques. How are you going to distribute the materials that you need? Now, there's a few ideas that we'll talk about later on, but make sure that you know how you're going to do it. One consideration is some of the students might not be with you the day that you're going to do a particular project. Therefore, you would have to have given them the material the day prior. So it requires a little bit of organization. Consider your writing surfaces right in the garden. If you have hard, non-porous surfaces, you can wipe them off with an antibacterial. But if you're using wood boards or something like that, really consider what are you going to use for writing surfaces. Specific procedures for students. How and when are you expecting them to wash their hands? What is going to be the clean tool procedure in your garden? When do they have to wear gloves and when can they not wear gloves? What's expected of them in work groups? How are they going to work together? What materials are they responsible to have in the school garden and what materials are they expected to have? So now the fun part, the actual teaching in and from the school garden. So when you start in the beginning teaching again in the garden, please keep it simple for your sake and the student's sake. How much more upset and in disarray could we all be than we are right now? So really back it up a little bit and maybe think of things that you don't customarily teach in the garden. For example, calming and breathing exercises. These are great to refocus attention. They're used to help students with anger issues. To get an idea of the type of lesson that I'm talking about, you can go to copingskillsforkids.com, and that's just one example. There's plenty of them. And we'll talk about the breathing exercises in a little more detail in a moment. Meditation. Perhaps you have someone in the community that teaches meditation. Perhaps they would be interested in coming in, holding some classes. You know that the parents are often accompanying the student during lessons. What a great way to introduce yourself. Attentional exercises, simple things like within a certain amount of time, have the kids write down everything that they can see, that they can hear, that they can smell. Yoga, another perfect opportunity to get people from the community into your school. Even if you can't get a professional in, simple exercises that you can look up, that you can learn, or that you can get information from a professional and then pass on to your students. So these breathing exercises are things such as triangle breathing. When I went to, I think it was Waltham, they had these cards made and laminated. Between each set of students, they'd wipe them off quick with an antibacterial. The student puts his finger on that blue start here. They breathe in for a count of 3. The teacher speaks softly, counting to 3. Then you hold it for 3. You breathe out for 3. And you follow that triangle a few times. You can also do it with squares. Little more difficult, but certainly any elementary school child should be capable. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. You'd be amazed how wonderful you feel after this. It would be a great way to start any difficult project or job. There are a few schools that say that this is something that they're going to retain after COVID. How about aromatherapy? Have students smell herbs and talk about how they were used during colonial times. Have them describe the smells. Poetry, Robert Louis Stevenson, Beatrix Potter. Viewing famous artworks, Cezanne, Monet. Maybe have 2 different totally styles, one realism, one more avant-garde, have them compare, contrast. The Fibonacci sequence, which is the circular pattern that is used in nature frequently, things like sunflowers, flower blossoms, pine cones. Listen to music inspired by gardens, and again, possibly compare and contrast different styles, different pieces, different performers. And step it up a little bit. So go from that to an array of items. What would you choose to eat? How come? Talk about from there nutrition, human digest, food needs, both human and animal. Seed starting. What a great way to reach out into the community. If there are families that are starting a garden for the first time, how cool would it be to get your students working with their parents and their adults within their household to make a garden. Sundials, the history of telling time, step it up. Drawing in the garden, going from simple drawings, quick drawings, to botanical drawings. Exploring the five senses and then moving up to the physiology of sight, smell, taste. What's bigger? Simple guess, then have a student pick it up and see what really weighs or measures bigger. Possibly making a scale, a home scale, and then having some kind of a contest. The how of teaching from the school garden. So, one thing that seems to work best throughout all the gardens I visit is when the teacher makes a kit of material for both students within the classroom and students that are going to be home that day. They also use them when the kids are totally home, and then the teacher Zooms or WebExes or whatever from the garden, but the student has the material at home. So the things you're going to use for this are disposables like Ziploc bags, brown paper lunch bags, file folders. There's an activity kit that you can find from the USDA, I believe, and it's in the left-hand corner, and I'll look that up and give you where you can find it. But it's an activity kit that's already assembled that you can copy off and have the kids bring home. Now, when you have that package, include a list of what should be in the kit and what the student is expected to supply. It also helps, I've been told since, that it helps if you put what date are you going to work on it so the kids know when to assemble the material. This way I have kids scrambling for simple things like a pencil, paper, or whatnot that they're expected to have. And if they're walking out to the garden and they're expected to bring the paper and the pencil or whatever, it gives them an opportunity to have a list so that they know what they're bringing out. The other way to do it is to have materials that the students maintain themselves. So possibly a school garden diary, a workbook, the boxed clipboards, which is on the right-hand side. It's a hard plastic folder and it has some depth to it so that they can include stuff for probably about a month. And it also would give them that work surface that they can draw and write on right in the garden. Also, plastic binders would work quite well. A school garden refillable bag where you could put all the items that they're going to need for a lesson or a unit at one time, and then they pick it up and they keep it with them until the next unit or lesson. So embrace this new time. There's so much to be gained during this change. Video lessons offer you an opportunity to have home-based family classes, learning that extends truly into the community, more so than I think we've ever had an opportunity to do. It allows you to address the social issues that are affecting your students and families, like food assistance, nutrition, and beginning horticultural skills. It gives you an opportunity to have a new planting scheme. If you found in a regular time that vegetables and fruits were too overwhelming for the school group that you have, possibly natives or herb garden is the way to go. You don't lose anything, it's just a different experience. You have funding opportunities now through that school garden that possibly weren't available previously. Lessons that address formerly overlooked issues like calming techniques for students, improved attention. More of the community members and families are available right now. They have more time than they've had previously. And there's new grant monies for hard goods and supplies. So embrace this new time. Find out what works for you that perhaps you haven't done before. And if it turns out that the old way was the better way, you can always go back. I look forward to any questions.
Awesome. You were quick on this. I love the idea of mindfulness in the garden and using this as an opportunity to help kids cope. This is exceptional. So if you have any questions, enter them into the chat and the Q&A box. First question we have from Alicia is, what would be appropriate to include in kits for student garden materials for autumn in New England?
Well, we do a lot of work with leaves and seeds, acorns, items like that. We do everything from simple rubbings and then step it up a little bit. Okay, what are the high pots? What are the low pots? Why do leaves change color? What's impacting them that causes that color change? They can do all kinds of experiments. For smaller kids, shapes, sizes, assembling. For older kids, obviously, this is the time of harvest, and there's just about any kind of class that you can teach. You can teach weights and measures. You can teach, a lot of the older students have obligations for community service, and the garden is a wonderful time. There was just an incredible story on the national news about school students in Los Angeles who saw an old rundown liquor store and they were tired of all the liquor stores in their community. It was getting turned over, but it wasn't selling. So they asked the real estate agent if they could have it for the summer, and they sold fresh produce out of the site, just students. It's absolutely incredible the things they can do. Right now, families need food, and what would be better than some type of a distribution that the kids run from the school garden if you already have vegetables in there.
Yeah, we've heard of many of the school gardens that we're involved with through Cooperative Extension are continuing their food donation programs and growing throughout this time. So kudos to everybody who's involved in that amazing work. Teresa asks, is there a good way to do virtual garden? We were just talking about this, Melissa.
Oh, absolutely. So part of the problem is the overwhelming number of things. You have the computer that you're using that possibly you have your lesson plan on, that you may have information on. Now you need that to also do your videography for the students that are not there. A lot of the teachers have skinned that cat by using their iPhone for the video, and they use a small $15 tripod that you can get virtually at any camera store, or obviously order online. And that allows you to leave all your lesson plans and all your materials on your computer and then use the video. The other thing that a lot of them have done have been to go to their local cable channels. Now, the local cable channels often are making commercials and local programming, but right now, obviously, that has come to a grinding halt. So a lot of them have been very enthusiastic about coming in, filming the school garden, if that's, obviously you need approval for that, or to assist you in the technical requirements of doing video from the school garden. Quite a few of the teachers, while there were no students in the school, still were video conferencing the students from the garden. That was pretty cool.
I wanted to also share something. So I've been in I coordinate the Master Gardener program, and I've been in a conference all week with the other state coordinators and county coordinators around the country. And they were talking about how to virtually teach from the garden. A lot of other extensions are doing virtual garden tours, and they suggested a Rhodes Go wireless microphone. So it basically attaches to your cell phone, and then there's like this fuzzy thing that cancels out the wind noise. So I'm going to put that in the chat box as well. Rhodes Go, RODESGO. I think it was it might be somewhat pricey, but maybe it's something you could, get grant funding for, or GoFundMe, that kind of thing. So
the table.
funding, we had a question of, can you show that grant information again? And I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about the School Garden Initiative website. So
Absolutely.
uri.edu/SGI School Garden Initiative. If you go to that, it is in the chat box. You can click on find funding, and there's a bunch of grant funding. But Melissa, maybe you can navigate back to that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Word. Whoops.
And it was specifically a question about the hard goods, who was giving out that grant funding.
Oh, it's it's not going to happen.
The shade structure.
It's the Dermatological Association. And
yeah, you should be able to click on the left and go up to the slide. Maybe not.
It's not moving.
Okay, Alicia has a great suggestion. Don't forget that local high schools may have video programs that can assist too. I love the idea of a high school helping the younger school ages accomplish their goals. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions in the chat or the Q&A. Any other suggestions of how you're teaching virtually from the garden? We can kind of open this up as a community conversation as well to share ideas. I know we have a lot of Rhode Islanders on this call, so this is cool. I love being able to share with community, but remotely. And South Carolina. Dan suggests start gathering materials now so all students can have a tomato plant at home this spring. Gardening is about doing, not watching. Getting kids' hands dirty and starting gardens at home is the way to go. And Dan, I wonder, God, I don't want to put people on the spot, but I know he's a high school teacher and we often have questions about how high schoolers are engaging their youth in gardens. So if you want to share any more information, please do. And I will share it on your behalf. I think we had another thing come into the chat. Teresa lives in Michigan and is not allowed to work with students. So I think some of that virtual education might work. Any thoughts, Melissa?
Well, a lot of the schools are reaching into the community and getting individuals from their garden to then do a video log, garden diaries. One of them was comparing how people grew and staked and harvested tomatoes, for example. So they would have gardeners, commercial sites, talk about what they do, how they do it, how they grow them, how they harvest them, where they sell them, if they sell them. Pretty cool way to engage resources and community members that possibly you wouldn't normally engage. Certainly, you can go to the gardens and teach from the gardens without the students there. And if they are put on YouTube or some other such app, you can have it accessible for those students anytime, any place, as well as their adults.
So Teresa asks, do the schools have a Facebook page to upload pictures? That might be a good idea.
Some do, some don't. Some have a very restricted idea of what can and cannot go onto the page. So the best thing to do is certainly to ask. What a lot of the schools have done, such as Willard in North Attleboro, they have a separate Facebook page that's solely about their school garden, and it allows them to communicate more freely and post a lot more pictures than if they were to put them onto the school site itself. Many of the school sites now are managed by the superintendent's office and incorporates all the schools. So it really limits how much information you can put on. So if you can put some type of a separate Facebook page, a separate link off of the main school pages, that's the way to go. That's the way to go. But ask around, see what other groups have done, and see what's worked for them within your community.
Absolutely. And again, on that SGI website that I mentioned earlier, we should have put that into this presentation next time. There is a great map of where the school gardens are in Rhode Island. So it's a good place to start. You can kind of click there and then see who it is that you might want to reach out to kind of form a localized school gardening community. So I will just mention a few housekeeping notes, and if you have any questions, feel free to continue entering them into the Q&A and chat box, or any ideas you'd like to share. Again, we'd like for this to be a learning community for you as well. I'll just mention, since we're here, that the application process is open if you'd like to become a URI Master Gardener. Not only will you learn research-based horticulture information from URI faculty and staff, but this is the first year that we're completely online. So I know you all have a lot on your plates, but perhaps this is the year, the spring semester, when you might want to become a Master Gardener. And then we have additional training, a school garden academy for folks who want to help support outdoor classrooms as well. I'll mention that here are some great online gardening resources. You can get to that just by Googling URI Master Gardener Program and clicking on our gardening resources. You can also find the email for our gardening and environmental hotline. So if throughout the year there are specific problems in your garden and you'd like them diagnosed, snap a photo with your smartphone and send it in. We have volunteers answering emails from home. We invite you to continue learning with us at this Learn at Home webinar series, which is held every Tuesday at 7 p.m. And there's our email and our phone number if you have any general questions. A few other things I might mention is that we now have virtual speakers. So if you're looking for a speaker, you can put in a request form for a Master Gardener to speak to your group. We also have contactless soil testing. So if you'd like to get free pH soil testing done this fall in your school garden or your home garden, you can drop that off at URI or mail it into our office. So you can just, again, look at our URI Master Gardener Program website, click on resources, and you'll find the soil testing information there. Where do you find a copy of this presentation for reviewing? It will be posted within the week with closed captioning up on the URI Cooperative Extension YouTube page. So you'll be able to review this at your leisure there as well. Again, thank you all for rising to these incredible challenges and continuing to educate youth and finding all of the collective benefits that we can get from gardening. We know how good it makes us feel. So thank you for exposing the children to this as well. You are my heroes personally. So, and thank you, Melissa, again, for sharing all your knowledge. Any last thoughts?
Well, the first problem that most people run into when they go back into the school garden is not soliciting the input of the administration. You assume you've already done that. And the second thing is, don't discount any resources. Someone that you may have already gone to for a grant or some type of support, go again and Google again. There are things available now that weren't available before COVID. So do your work and go online and, Herb Garden, National Herb Society, some great resources.
And a great reminder in the chat box to involve the community as well. So absolutely, I think everybody's looking for a way to contribute. So we encourage you all and wish you good gardening success this fall and then next year. And I just am so encouraged by seeing all the articles about the Spanish flu and how that really encouraged this whole outdoor teaching movement. So hopefully we can be innovative here in this time as well and be able to look back on this time period and say, hey, that's when we really got engagement in our school garden. So like Melissa said, maybe there's some good that can come out of this really challenging and somewhat terrible time period. So loved you all. I hope you stay safe and well out there and have a wonderful school year. Thanks, everybody. stop the recording.